there's definitely a lot of contention there, but there were sort of those social media battles, but in the published literature.
Yeah.
You go back to the 1950s, there are tons of papers out there saying that there's this whole idea of the cholesterol model of heart disease is just complete bullshit. And it's just based on really flimsy evidence and weak epidemiology and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of back and forth in there. So it was definitely still there. Now, I don't know why this guy was out against Warburg himself, but it could have just been a difference of opinion. But it's funny because, people still cite that 1975 paper as saying, no, the Warburg was wrong. It's not the mitochondria. Look at this study back in 1975. I was like, yeah, but it was wrong. Yeah. We have electron microscopes since then. We can actually see that they absolutely are damaged. And also Professor Seyfried had just closed the case on this because he did something called the nuclear transfer study set of experiments where he took the DNA, like the nucleus, which contains the DNA, from cancer cells that have all those genetic changes, right? So all the mutations and everything like that, took that out, put that into a normal cell with normal mitochondria. Did not behave as cancer. Right. Could actually clone it and clone it into like mice and frogs, right?
Right.
Then you took the damaged mitochondria from a cancer cell, put that into a normal cell with normal DNA. It did behave as cancer. Right. Couldn't clone it. It just died, right?
Right.
Then, just to put the nail in the coffin, they took healthy mitochondria and put those into cancer cells, suppress the cancer.
Okay.
And that was what Warburg showed back in his time, was that if you have healthy mitochondria, you cannot get cancer. That's what he said. That was the idea. And we certainly know of cancers that don't have genetic changes and the other cancers that have different genetic changes in the different cells and maybe no genetic changes in large body of the cells, but they all behave in the same way. But they all cancers that we know of have damaged mitochondria.
And mitochondria is damaged mostly by what?
A lot of things. So all the normal carcinogens that we have, they say, well, this causes genetic change or this, that, and the other. They can damage the mitochondria as well. And mitochondria have DNA as well because they used to be little bacteria that sort of formed a symbiotic relationship and they started pumping out energy for us. And our nuclei actually store a lot of the mitochondrial DNA that actually came originally from the mitochondria. Like all our hormones, testosterone, things like that are actually coded for in the mitochondria. And so a lot of things can damage it. So, the normal things like radiation, smoking, alcohol, different sort of drugs and chemicals, different genetic changes, like Tay-Sachs disease and things like that, predispose you to get cancer, but they damage the mitochondria. They interrupt the mitochondria and these plant toxins. So when I was speaking to Professor Thomas Seyfried, I was talking to him about my experience when the reason I stopped eating plants was because I took cancer biology, and my cancer biology professor just said, yeah, these plants have tons and tons and tons of plant toxins that are carcinogenic. And I was talking to Seyfried about this in our interview, and he said, yeah, all those plant toxins, they all damage the mitochondria directly, right? And so that's the thing, you're building up damage to the mitochondria, like we were talking about with cyanide. Cyanide directly damages the mitochondria and stops that electron transport chain, and so it stops your mitochondria from being able to generate energy, and it kills you, right? It just stops your mitochondria from generating energy. All your cell tissues die. So it's a major factor for mitochondrial health and for your brain health. But yeah, absolutely. Exercise can stimulate autophagy, can stimulate the proper production and function of your mitochondria as well. So yeah, absolutely. All these things can benefit that, and then eliminating out different things that directly damage your mitochondria. So there are different, I obviously talk a lot about plant toxins, but a lot of these plant toxins directly damage the mitochondria, like cyanide. Cyanide is these cyanogenic glycosides are in about roughly 3,000 plants that we know about. The WHO said, and CDC says there is no safe amount of cyanide to eat. It's just, you just avoid it, right? So where is that label on a packet of almonds or cassava or veggie chips? It's made out of cassava and tapioca, which have cyanide in it, or flaxseed. Flaxseed is a major staple of vegan vegetarian diets because it's high in omega-3s, but it's, I would say, well, we need omega-3s. It's actually the wrong omega-3. It's ALA. You need DHA and EPA for your brain. Like ALA is good for your heart, but it doesn't do anything for your brain. Well, 20% of your brain is DHA, right? So it's a major structural component of your brain, and EPA makes up another portion, and cholesterol makes up a major portion as well. So, 60, 70% of your brain is fat, and a major part of that is these omega-3s that come from animal fat. And you don't convert ALA into DHA or EPA very effectively. Some say not at all. Some say around 5%. And other studies have shown that actually you eat more ALA and your DHA goes down. So you can see these on an electron microscope. And you can actually see them, and you can use them with more high-powered microscopes as well. You don't need an electron microscope for it, but we do have good images, and you can see the internal structural components, like the internal membranes. That's where all the action happens of oxidative phosphorylation, where basically the energy production of ATP takes place on that membrane. Yeah. And so it's actually pretty incredible what people have been able to figure out about these little organelles. Yeah. Like people like Otto Warburg, who's a Nobel Prize winner in medicine and physiology. Yeah. He did tons of research on mitochondria and cancer, wrote a seminal paper in the 1950s called The Origins of Cancer, and he argued that cancer was a metabolic mitochondrial disease. And he said that all of these cancer cells, while they may have, and there's actually his work actually predated Watson and Crick discovering DNA. Right. And then DNA come around, they were just like, yep, DNA is everything. It's all about your genes. And it's not actually, because you have tumors that will have DNA genetic changes, but other cells won't, but they'll still act as cancer. They're all cancer cells, but only some of them have genetic changes, or they'll have different genetic changes. And there are actually cancers out there that have no genetic changes whatsoever, but they all have damaged mitochondria. And that's what Warburg showed, and he showed that through their function, through the cells now lacking the ability to go through oxidative phosphorylation. So he actually didn't have sophisticated machinery and equipment and electron microscopes to prove this. He just actually showed by the function and lack of function what was going on, and then that was later confirmed with electron microscope and with these more advanced sort of technologies that actually confirmed all of his work. There was a paper in 1975 where someone was basically trashing all of his work a couple of years after he died. Basically, they waited for him to die. So he can't have a rebuttal. And then he published this stuff out and said, oh, yeah, no, it was a good thought, but, the problem is it depended on mitochondria actually being damaged, but now we know that, they're actually not damaged. They actually are. And you can see these under electron microscope, where the internal membrane is called the cristae, is just gutted. It's just gone. And so that's the thing in biology, form equals function. And so if the form is damaged, they won't be able to go through the function. So if it doesn't have that internal membrane, it doesn't have an internal membrane to generate ATP. Mitochondria run your cells. So you can think of them as like little sailors on a ship. They're going up the rigging, they're pulling the mast, they're doing all these sorts of things. They're actually making the cell work. Yeah. So they're not just sitting there, they're not just generators sitting there. They actually go to this organelle, pump out a bunch of ATP so that this can turn on and do something. They go to this little receptor on the cell membrane and pump out some ATP so you can do this, and they go over here and shoot out neurotransmitters and things like that. So the mitochondria run the cell.
They've got ADHD in the cell.
That's it. They're just like, I gotta be out. I gotta go there. Or you have ADHD if you don't have them working right, because that's actually what they've showed. There's a dysfunction of mitochondria can actually precipitate ADHD.
Fucking motherfucker.
Yeah.
But is that something that we could help, like Delby then, like with ADHD, adding creatine to his diet?
Well, in general, just helping the mitochondria. So creatine can help that too, but you also want to go through autophagy. You want to make sure that your mitochondria, things that slow down, they get broken down, they sort of wear out over time. Just like, different parts in your car, like, your fan belt might start to wear out. You don't replace the whole car, you just replace the fan belt. But if you don't, you can have other problems, and other problems start building out. So it's the same with your mitochondria and your other organelles. So this is the principle of autophagy. Yeah. So autophagy, self-eating. So you recycle, your cell eats up some of these organelles, like the mitochondria, if they're sort of getting damaged and slowing down, they're not working really well. And they recycle their nutrients, and they make new mitochondria or new organelles of other descriptions. And so it's people think that you have to fast to do this. So you have to fast for 72 hours plus or something like that. Yeah. Dr. David Sinclair from Harvard and Peter Attia, they say, you have to fast for like 5 days every 3 months. It's really important.
That's what I heard, that the fasting over that certain time period, the body goes, I'm going to eat my own cells instead.
It explains the observed phenomena, but it's completely wrong. Right. So it's not that your body's scavenging for energy. You have plenty of energy. If that were the case, you'd have to run out of fat before your body started scavenging, before you even started digging into your own muscles. What it is a normal process. It's a normal process of housekeeping. And just like you tune up your car every year, you replace the fan belt and things like that. It's just normal maintenance. So your body has to do that. Your body is designed to do that. And
yeah, like if my mitochondria is failing, it's not going to wait for my body to go into a fast to go and replace it.
That's it. Yeah.
Right?
It's just like, oh, now I need energy. Oh, I'll get this thing. No, it's like, that's not working right. Let's replace it. And so that's what's happening is your body's just trying to sub these things out. So the thing is that they say that you have to do this by fasting, and fasting does this, and you have to go over 72 hours to get proper autophagy. But that's actually not the case. It's really just high insulin levels suppress autophagy. And so that's the thing. It's not fasting. It's not eating. It's not eating carbohydrates and having low insulin. So if you just don't eat carbohydrates, then you're going to be going through autophagy all the time. Your body's constantly going to be recycling out these organelles and these mitochondria. And that's what they've shown in studies with ketogenic diets, like a carnivore diet, that after 3-4 months, you have 4 times the number of mitochondria, and they're 4 times as effective. And so now there's 2 professors of psychiatry from Harvard who've independently come to the conclusion that ketogenic carnivore diets are the best medical treatment for mental health issues such as major depression, anxiety, OCD, bipolar, ADHD, schizophrenia, and even autism. And they've both written books independently. One's Professor Chris Palmer, who wrote a book called Brain Energy. And he goes all into the mitochondria and how important they are for brain health and mental health. And then the other is Dr. Georgia Ede,